All right, we are.
Okay,
Awesome. Cool. Like everybody can grab a seat. If you didn't already grab, there are two worksheets in the back. Transaction fallout best practices, and then the 6 bulletproofing the transaction issues and solutions.
Yeah.
Awesome. How's everybody's weekend?
Green down.
Yeah?
Look
Sugar
at the all
tree.
the green happening up there.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
He's
gonna wear it.
Nick.
Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah.
I should know these.
Well, we'll just go ahead and get started. And if people trickle in, that's totally fine too. So welcome to our education day for October, bulletproofing the transaction. If you don't know what bulletproofing the transaction means, it's a Keller Williams term. It's from the Shift book, by Gary Keller. If you don't have it, I think the Market Center sells copies of it. Definitely worth a read in a shifting market. So bulletproofing the transaction just means keeping it together. So today we're gonna talk about the 6 common reasons how things go wrong in your transaction, why deals fall apart. And we're gonna hear from our panelists to talk about what they do as much as they possibly can to keep it together, because you can't always prevent it. But sometimes you can prevent it. She's here. Oh, we want
Wow.
Just want to make an entrance.
Yeah.
Right. I know, yeah,
Tie it
she's
all in.
all together.
Yeah, she's trying it all
in.
Sorry. Yeah, that's great.
No worries. So before I jump into things, I want to introduce our panelists. Tell me who you are, your role if you are on a team, your experience, how long you've been in the field, and what your favorite Halloween candy is. So, Kayla, you can start.
I didn't have time to think about the candy.
I'm sorry.
Kayla Remark, I'm with Keller Home Loans. We're a partner here. We are a subsidiary of Mutual of Omaha, so we have lots of different products. I'm a senior loan officer, so you may have gotten some emails about getting licensed yourself as a LO. So I have a couple of realtors that are also dual licensed as LO. So I'm their senior LO, as well as I service all my own clients. So couple of different roles there, and I do a lot of our education on a monthly basis. And then Candy, is that?
Yeah, well, how long have you been in the mortgage world?
I've been in finance for about 15 years, and I've been in mortgage for 9 years. Well, 9 years this time. I got laid off, and then I came back for more abuse, so. So I guess 11 years in mortgage. Yeah, I started in banking and I loved home equity lines, so I went into mortgage and I've not looked back since. And then my favorite candy, this is really stuck in my head. Reese's pumpkin, the pumpkin specifically.
Yeah.
They're different. They do
ratio.
It's the ratio and the texture. You're right.
Alright, that's next. Alright.
My name's Nick Rock. I've been a real estate agent for 13 years now, I believe. And I also own a media company that's been doing real estate media for about 15 years. I have the privilege of working with 3 other agents that are on a team and 1 other admin. I think, what else was it? The candy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Candy.
The candy, probably payday. My daughter tells me how, I know.
Oh, my God.
She said, she said it's the most boring candy in the world. Yeah.
She's just thinking about it.
It's not super guilty.
No,
It's
some protein,
right?
there's some substance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever you need to tell
I
yourself.
myself.
Words are
Side
something.
story. My life.
Yeah.
If your favorite candy is Werther's, just see yourself out.
I do.
I am Tiffany Miller. I have been on the Ginger Coon team for almost 6 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, I started as a Zillow lead. Me and my husband were 8, 9 years ago almost. I was a client and then she's like, I think you're really good at this, so. COVID hit and all that, and her and I have been together ever since. I'm the team's TC. I got licensed in February of this year. Yeah, I just kind of help day-to-day transactions with the team. And now I do buying and selling for however many months. And then I would have to agree with Kayla, Reese's is, I always steal those. from
The
kids.
pumpkin Reese's or just regular?
I think all of them in general. I'm not picky. I'm not picky.
Anyone try the Reese's Thins?
No.
I like
No.
those. No, I like the
Yeah.
texture.
The dark chocolate one,
Yeah,
so good.
They're so addictive. Those ones are really good, yeah.
Yes.
Also Tiffany is just recently licensed and is killing it, so
Yes.
great work.
Crushing it.
Yeah, crushing it.
Thank you.
Alright, go ahead.
So I'm not Sam LaFew.
I'm so sorry.
Which I was, not. So I'm Charles Edmondson, so I'm the training manager at American Title Solutions, so I work with the escrow officers and escrow processors. On just like, learning the industry, learning our processes, learning how to, if they're brand new, how to do escrow and title. Or if they've been working with us for a while, just continuing to develop them. I work a lot with the teams on like problem solving, troubleshooting, if there's issues with a transaction. And I'm almost 10 years in title now, and in January, and then I gotta go with Reese's. Reese's are pretty awesome, yeah, so.
Right.
I'll go with that.
Awesome.
I am Patty House. I've been a realtor on Jose's team for 18 years. I'm his closing manager, so I do any seller's contract to close. I handle everything. It's a lot.
Are you all on the listing side, or are you also on the buyers?
No, I don't handle anything buy side.
Okay.
It's
All
all
on the
listing
listing,
side.
okay. Awesome.
So I'm a licensed realtor and a closing manager, so that's what I do. So we don't, Stacy and I are not out in the field, but we do all the closings, so. And my favorite candy bar is a Milky Way. I really like the Milky Way Midnights, but any Milky Way will do. It's right.
Awesome. All right, well, we're just gonna jump right in. I'm gonna give you guys a minute to think. But before we go right in, I'm going to kind of talk about the 6 bulletproofing the transactions, issues and solutions. And these are gonna come up in our conversations today. But this is just a quick glance at, this is taken directly from the Shift book, Gary Keller. So the 6 most common reasons why a deal would fall through: inspections and repairs. Shockingly, that's number 1. And then it discusses how things go wrong and what the solutions are, but I'm not gonna give it all away yet. And then appraisals. So why we have a mortgage specialist in the room, loan approval and funding if your buyer loses financing or can't obtain it somehow. Other contingencies like the sale of the buyer's house, short sales, things like that, title issues. And the co-op agent, who's ever worked with a difficult agent? I mean, we all have. And deadlines, not meeting your deadlines or not being organized. So that's why we have some transaction coordinators in the room, closing coordinators. So this is just an overview of what we're gonna talk about today. But if you wanna dive deeper into those, listen up or buy the book. Okay, so let's just dive right in. What are the most common reasons that you are seeing deals fall through today, like in this market? Most commonly, anyone can take it away.
Lack of communication.
On
That's really big on anyone's part, honestly, whether it's between you and your client or you and the other agent or even the lender. Just kind of lack of communication and not setting that expectation kind of upfront and just being transparent.
yeah, absolutely.
A lot of newer agents, they're just very green. if they don't know how to speak to their buyers or,
Mhm.
you know, that kind of, I get an ROC that all they asked for was $21,000 off and
Oh, they asked for
that
it?
was it. And I was like, can you,
No qualifiers there?
I was like, is the house caving in? What's happening? Like my seller lives there, like I need to, right? Anyway, so it was just a matter of, she's like, well, that's what my buyer asked for. I was like, okay, well, you have to back that up with some evidence of some sort of whatever, so. I think you really, communication is like, you have to communicate to buyers and sellers both ways, like, this is gonna be a negotiation, so let's all get on board and work together kind of thing,
Right.
but usually inspections are what ours fall through for all the time, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the note of communication, how many deals could have been saved with better communication? I feel like that's pretty simple. All of them. What are some of the early warning signs that you see? I'm gonna specifically direct this to the transaction coordinators who have had any transaction coordinating experience. What are the early warning signs that you think I'm gonna need to put extra attention or like babysit this deal more than others? Early warning signs.
Definitely the co-op agent,
Mhm.
definitely.
If they're not responding, which I know in the beginning where some agents don't either acknowledge my existence or anything.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm the one relaying you the information. That's kind of big if they only wanna like text you or email and it takes them 24 hours to respond to one thing. Just having that, like, how do you say, another agent, you respond to.
Then you know you're in for a really good time.
Yes.
Whenever it's taking that long. Okay. I'm going to direct this one to Nick. Can you share an example of a deal that nearly fell apart and how did you save it?
We've had quite a few that have nearly fallen apart, and I would say more recently, it's almost always been the communication with newer agents and everything, setting expectations, but also a lot of lending issues over the past, I would say 2 to 3 months. We've had a lot of appraisal issues come up. Versing yourself in how to prepare an ROV is not only gonna work to your benefit, but it's really gonna help to show your client how much you can work for them and how valuable your position actually is.
What's an ROV?
Yeah, can you expand, what is an
Yeah,
ROV for the
ROV
people in the room?
ROV is reconsideration of value. This is essentially your chance to argue an appraisal. If you have very specific things going towards a home that you think that it should appraise higher or whatever that may be, you can prepare that and submit it to the lender. I believe it does go to the appraiser as well. So you're kind of telling them how to do their job. So you gotta really
It goes
learn
in-
how. Yeah.
Yeah,
As
I
long
love
as
it.
you kind of learn how to word that properly, you know, hey, I appreciate all the time and effort that you put into this, but the comps that you used are worthless. So here is what I'm seeing, and don't use those words, but
got deficiency in information.
I mean, yeah, a lot of it comes back when we have these appraisers that aren't used to the area more than
Mhm,
anything.
yeah, right.
I had one 2 weeks ago where the home itself was in Canton South. One of the comps used was in Perry and another one was in Minerva. Neither of those areas are similar.
Makes sense.
Exactly, yeah, so, and they cited it was because of the year bill, they had to go out further, all these different things. What you can do is just say, you know, hey, I appreciate your view on this, here's where we came up with the pricing. And show them what comps you used, and a lot of times the lender and the appraiser will at least say, you know, hey, okay, this is considerable. We'll adjust the value to some extent, if not clear everything, or they'll tell you no way. And at least you can say you tried.
Right. How many times when you go up to bat against the appraiser, how many times do you say that it works?
I'm at about 50-50.
Wow.
So, and
That's higher
that's,
than expected.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I need to know
quite a
this
bit
trick.
more. Quite a
I
bit
am
more.
not 50-50.
Yeah, and I'll shoot.
What's your stat?
I would say it's more like maybe 20% of the time, but me and Jose try all the time.
Yeah.
So-
It's
It's
a
hard.
really long letter. The hardest ones are always VA.
Yeah.
So just getting that put together because you have 24 hours. The last one that I did for VA was, I was told during dinner on my birthday that this needed to be submitted by midnight. So it was,
3
yeah,
hours,
Yeah.
you know?
yeah, it was a really long drawn out email, but it ended up working. And we ended up getting that seller the extra $20,000 that they were going after.
That is huge. And now you have a client for life.
Exactly.
Like, they're gonna sing your praises.
Yeah.
To all their
Actually,
friends.
a builder that I've worked with quite a few times, and that more than anything solidified, you know, hey, this is the
That
reason that you guys are going through us. Not just me in general, but a realtor in
Mhm.
particular that can help you to make up the money and offset the cost difference that they always see with the commissions.
Wow.
That's a
What?
class, I feel like in itself,
Mhm.
because I'm sitting here listening and the time frame, right? But the hoops that you have to jump through to even get all of the information in front of you as a listing agent, right?
Yeah,
Mark that down, Caitlin, let's have. a
Okay.
class.
Did they call for Tidewater or did they turn in the appraisal?
so they did end up calling for Tidewater,
Okay.
2 days before that and
Uh-huh.
never told anybody,
Oh,
which is really
Portal
great.
To communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really great communication from that particular lender who we've not used again.
anybody who doesn't know what Tidewater is, it's for VA appraisers. If they feel they can't get the value of the house, they call for Tidewater, which means
Yeah.
we have to provide them with comps on how we price the property because they're not finding it. They're not
Yeah.
finding the value.
Last point on that, Tidewater can be tricky because you don't know what the appraised value is
It-
yet.
right,
That's where
exactly.
you're going at. You could be
Yeah.
$2,000 off, you could be $20,000 off.
Yeah.
So,
I've had that happen where they say Tidewater and you don't know, like, you just have to try to prove the value that you listed it at.
Yeah.
As best you can.
Yep.
This is a question just still on this topic. What are the appraisal gap amounts? Like, how low have you been seeing appraisals coming in?
the last 3 that I've had were all $20,000.
I have 21 right now.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That is already.
From a lending standpoint, are you allowed to coach the agent at all?
So communication again plays into it, like in some transactions, once I get the contract, one of the agents will reach out and be like, listen. You know, negotiations were really, really competitive, we went above asking, we don't know if we're gonna get the value. And I usually say, okay, if the listing agent has priced this home based on comps that they researched, I would ask for those now, let's have those ready. Because when we put that ROV together, us specifically, and VA is a whole other beast, because not all, so you have to be certified as an appraiser to do VA, to do FHA, to do USDA. A lot of these appraisers are not doing the 2-year apprenticeship to even get their apprenticeship, you know, like get their appraisal license. And then jumping through more hoops to do these pain in the butt VA ones because they require so much. So we're really stuck as to the panels that we can use. Now, us as a lender, we do have a third-party service that we round robin those orders to. But we get to ask, we get to create our own panel and we get to say, these are the ones we prefer. So we get to round robin them to them first. So it's not happening as often with that panel in place, but it does still happen. And in that case, we have a form and we take all the emotion out of it. The form is just saying, this is where we think the deficiencies are in your current comps, like maybe the storage space is a finished storage space and you didn't take that into account on your report or you know, whatever it may be. And then we ask for 3 more comps, 3 different comps than what were already on the report, for reconsideration of value. So like you said, you're saying, hey, you suck. Can you redo your job again? I know you're busy. We take all the emotion out of it, kind of try to do some of the work for them. And I would agree, maybe 2 out of 10, they're gonna come back maybe with a few $1,000s. I've never had
Like a small adjustment, yeah.
Yeah, but even I had a rebuttal come back and they looked at it and they were like, we don't even think that the appraiser actually did reconsider this. So we're gonna send it back to our appraisal management service.
Wow.
And over the summer, I had one that they just refused to go back to that report. And the appraisal management service said, we're really sorry, we're gonna delete this, we're gonna start from scratch, we're not gonna take, which takes a lot, but we pushed and we got it, so.
Last question on appraisals, because it's everyone's favorite topic. Do you ever have a situation where you have a low appraisal, you do the rebuttal, nothing happens, and then you try to order a second appraisal and the buyer pays for a second appraisal? Have you had that recently?
They have lending, it's not allowed.
Not allowed, okay,
No, they would have to change lenders in order to get
Oh, I
a
see.
appraisal.
okay.
Which
Further
we've,
than that, if
we've
it's-
actually have done that.
It stays with it for
Yeah.
90 days
Right,
anyways,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, really.
and that's one of the
Okay.
reasons I'm so adamant on fighting that appraisal if it comes in low.
Yeah.
with FHA and VA, we are stuck at that point.
Yeah.
We either cannot accept an FHA or a VA offer, or your hands are tied for the next half year.
Sure, okay.
6 months, you're stuck with that appraisal value?
All right. Shifting gears, we're gonna ask a lending question, then a title question, I promise you're on deck. So Kayla, what are the top financing related issues other than appraisal, that cause deals to fall through? And how do you prevent them?
Well, I think encouraging your clients to get a second opinion is always a good idea while you're shopping, because you don't wanna be stuck like just under contract or in the final hour and you don't have anybody else that has eyes on their financing. So we had a situation recently, they were already they had just gone under contract and their realtor said, hey, get a second opinion just so you know you're getting a good deal on your rate and your fees. And when I was reviewing it, I was going through the credit report and I'm like, what did you say they got approved for? And they're like, FHA. And I was like, well, they don't qualify for FHA for this small reason here. So they might be under contract and they might think like they've gotten the house. But they didn't actually go through the guidelines and they didn't actually come through. So I think first and foremost is knowing the difference between a pre-qualification, which is very common what Rocket Mortgage does, and a pre-approval, meaning we've collected the documentation. It takes a lot more work up front because people don't want the loan, they want the house. So just being a little more patient to gather that paperwork and make sure that we look at bank statement transactions, make sure there's no hidden debt somewhere, make sure there's no new credit pools where they have more debt that it has not hit their report yet. And just making sure you have a really good, I always say like, control what you can, obviously, and having a really good lender to say, okay, to get the second opinion so that we know we have a couple of options. If one lender said, we're not all created equally. If one lender says, sorry, we hit this roadblock, or just to check the work. I mean, especially if you have those Rocket ones, like they pull like maybe a soft credit check and they might get a pay stub or they just take the stated income. And I hate this saying, buyers are liars,
Yeah.
but it's just, they're not educated. They don't look at it the way that I'm gonna look at it and the way we have to look at it. So, getting them pre-approved versus pre-qualified and really getting those financials reviewed and documented up front so that you don't run into those pitfalls during your transaction.
Agents, what do you do when a buyer comes to you and they are already pre-approved with preapprovals.com? And you're like, red flags are going up everywhere. How do you, you're not trying to convince them and push them and steer them, but how do you educate them so that they trust you? And try to have them get a second opinion or, 2 more opinions, for their pre-approvals. How do you handle a buyer with less than ideal financing?
The thing that's always worked for me is just ask questions,
Okay,
rather than to sit there and dictate, hey, this lender is not good because of this, and this. I'm gonna ask them, hey, what directed you towards that? Because for all I know, it's a banker that they've worked with for their whole life, or it's their uncle, or whatever it may be. And, you know, if it's, well, I just saw commercials for rocketmortgage.com. Okay, great. I've worked with Rocket countless times. I can tell you that their fees are considerably higher than anybody else. And their communication tends to be a little bit rougher, but you know, if you wanna look into a different lender that's gonna have better rates, that is going to save you thousands and thousands of dollars over not just the life of the loan, but closing.
Upfront, yeah.
Here are a few really great lenders that are all local that are willing to take your call or your text right now if you send them a message.
I'll share, like, I'll give a story of, hey, yeah, we had Rocket, they were trying to write an offer on a Sunday at 6 p.m. and guess what, you can't get a hold of your lender. And I'll say, you know, it looks more appealing when you have a local lender, they've already done X, Y, and Z for your pre-approval. And if you want that communication and having that transparency and be able to rely on that, you need to use someone that, you know, and read the fine print. It's probably too good to be true. If they say you're getting $2,000 at closing, read the fine print. You're probably paying more in the back end.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's a lot about educating your buyer and being patient with them, and sometimes it does take them losing out on an offer for them to realize that, hey, the listing agent said that we didn't win because they chose someone with a more reputable lender. So, okay.
We've actually
Oh, go ahead.
asked, like, if it's a lender we've never heard of or
I
it's
get a
out of
question all the
state.
time, yeah.
We'll ask, would your buyers be open to going to a local lender? Just to see if they are pre-approved, they don't have to use them, but that we know that they are
Right.
actually pre-approved for.
Just to vet them.
Yeah.
From a listing, well, I'll ask that question in a little bit. I wanna ask my title question. Okay, Charles.
Yes.
This is a question for you, also lending NTZ, but you can go first. So what are the common mistakes that you see agents do upfront / what's your pet peeve when you're like, the agent did this or didn't do this?
Yeah. So, and this would be more like kind of like something that could like derail a deal or really impact it
Mhm,
negatively,
yeah.
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 So, I tend to be more just like, just educational, informative, like anytime you have a deceased party on title, that can open up a can of worms. So I think one thing that can be very valuable for agents to do is when you're doing like your tax and legal, you know, you're looking at the county auditor to see, you know, the taxes and who's showing up on the title of the home on the county auditor. If you only have, say, Jane Doe signing your contract and you know that John Doe passed away this year and she's selling the house because of that. It's worth looking into it. I've had agents actually reach out to me and say, hey, I'm listing this property. I know that John Doe's deceased. What does title look like in light of that? Like, do they have survivorship, which means that the surviving person on title could take ownership of the property? Or I had a deal one time years ago where it went under contract. I was talking with the seller, I found out that his wife was deceased. I looked at the deed when it came in and they did not have survivorship and he had to get an estate open to delay the deal by like 2-3 months. It was
Wow.
quite and it caused an expense to him as well and the buyer. So there's just a lot that went into that you know, reaching out ahead of time, if you know you have a deceased owner and just bouncing that off your title agency, you know, just say like, hey, like, especially if you work with American a lot, like, can you look into this for me? Can we look into the deed? That helps a lot. Another thing too is like, I sometimes run into like, you know, somebody took title through a quitclaim deed and, you know, they like so-and-so signed it over to them, like the neighbor did or somebody they knew. And they don't have title insurance. So and it's worth asking your client, do you have title insurance? And if you do you know where it's at? Or who closed your deal when you got it? Title insurance can like solve almost anything. Like if you have title insurance and there's an issue with the property from before you owned it, like, you know, John Doe sold it to Charles and John Doe had judgment liens on his name. If he just signed over the property to me with a quitclaim deed, that's my problem. I have to figure out how to get that resolved in order to sell it to a new buyer and they can get insured. But if I have title insurance, if I bought the property from John Doe and I closed with like a title agency, I got a title policy, you can fix that pretty easily. So even just like if you have a deceased owner, finding out what's going on with the title with that, and then also, does your client have title insurance? Just in general, just finding that out, and maybe it's like, hey, if you do have it, why don't you pull that out of your box, your archives, you know, and have that handy. That can really smooth things out big time.
Can you explain a little bit about what a tax and legal is and how it's helpful whenever you're going to list a home? Patty, if you wanna touch on that also, but, yeah, you can explain what a tax and legal is first.
Yeah, so like, as far as like with the tax and legal, a lot of times what it involves is like, you're looking at like the county auditor's website, the profile for the property, where it shows like. You know, the auditor's appraised value, what are the property tax amounts, how are they paid, when was the last transferred? A lot of times in tax legal, you get a copy of the deed as well, you know, pulled from the county records. That's extremely valuable information for the agent, and it also, they can even share that with the title agency, if they're like, hey, you know, I'm listing this, or I went under contract with this. And, you know, here's what we pulled up, there's so much you can glean from that, like we were talking about, like,
Sure.
is somebody deceased and how they hold title and stuff like that, so.
I mean, we just had one, it was a trust, which is a whole nother beast in itself, and the lady that signed all of the paperwork, she goes, yeah, I'm one of the trustees, I can sign, no big deal, and I'm like, well, the title company needs a copy of your trust, we get the trust,
Yep.
and there's 3 co-trustees.
Oh,
So.
Fun fact.
say-
yeah, where are the other 2?
Exactly. So like you have to get all these people, you know, to
Coordinated, yeah.
sign and everything. So we always ask that up front, like if it's in a trust, we need trust documentation, that kind of thing. But not just a deceased party, but are you married?
Yes, I-
Are you married? And you get people, we've actually had this, one of our teammates, like, no, I'm not married. I mean, legally I'm married, but I haven't seen her in like 14 years. And they were set to close.
Yeah.
Wow.
They didn't close because
Yeah.
we have dower rights in the state of Ohio.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there's been several transactions where we're chasing
Yeah.
down
Yes,
spouses.
yes, if your client is in like there's a separation or divorce, definitely let your title agency know. That could be, I've seen buyers that just wreck so many things for them where, especially because if they have, the spouse has to sign the mortgage. If they're still legally married, if the divorce is not finalized with the county court, then they might have a spouse that they're estranged from that has to sign the mortgage to actually even get it filed in the state of Ohio. So just giving your title agency a heads up about that, your lender too, you know, it's just very valuable. So.
What about from a buyer standpoint, if your buyer is separated but still legally married and they want to purchase a property? Can you expound on that?
Yeah, so at least on the title side, what that means is that in Ohio, when you sell a property, or if you buy a property, or refinance on it. Basically, if you're signing a deed or a mortgage, you know, and you're currently married. So then it doesn't matter, like, I've had people tell me, I understand this, because people, you know, customers don't do this every day, but they'll say, well, I wasn't married when I bought the property. What matters is, are you currently married legally? In Ohio, then your spouse has signed a deed, even if they're not in the title at all. And if you're buying the property or refinancing, your spouse has to sign the mortgage, even if they're not a borrower and even if they're not going on the property title. They just signed a signature, basically, line on the mortgage. And that's just often, that could be a big shock and a nasty shock, you know, for buyers who are in a situation like that. Where so knowing ahead of time, so we can kind of game plan both the lender, the title agency, the agent, as far as like, hey, do we have contact with this person? Are they gonna be amenable to signing this, you know? That's just super valuable to know that, so.
Fun stuff.
Another one I was thinking.
Go ahead.
I've been over in the Canton office enough to like just be sitting there and one of our notaries comes in and is like, oh, they're upset about their bottom line. Like not doing a net sheet up front and knowing what they're going to make or what they have to bring in, you know, reviewing your settlement statement, but starting with that net sheet, like what, do we have enough to pay off our mortgage, to pay the realtor fees? Does the client know they're paying realtor fees? Sometimes we've had clients in there that's like, well, we didn't agree to that, it's like, you did, and then it's a whole big thing. So, I don't know if that's an upfront, I mean, a net sheet is definitely an upfront
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
but communicating with your client of like what the fees are, they're gonna have to be paying their tax, just all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
is super important.
So
Yeah, I've seen
American,
that kill
go ahead.
deals. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that kill deals before where seller had to bring cash to close, all that, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that would definitely, so from American Title or your title company, standpoint, you can get a tax and legal, we can request one from you guys. And it's free, and
Absolutely.
also, they have a tool for the seller net sheet as well.
Yeah.
So those are 2 like solid tools that you can use when you're talking with sellers, and also from the buy side, if you have, like, having a reputable lender that is communicating everything. I always tell my buyers, you're gonna need to know what's an estimate on your total cash to close, and what is your estimated monthly payment? If you don't know those two things, that's a sign that you might not have the right lender in your corner. And go get a second opinion, because those rates are constantly changing. And if you wanna know what your payment would be on this house, you need to have a team of experts, and that ultimately starts with the real estate agent. So, let's talk about inspections for a minute. Tiffany and Nick, what do you do before, during, and after a home inspection? If you have, let's say you have a nervous Nelly, first time home buyer, dad is there for the inspection, following the inspector around. Dad actually is the inspector.
It's probably a contract.
Yeah. I mean, this is just reminding me of me, whenever I purchased my first house, but my dad was like, what about this? So what do you do for that buyer? And ultimately their parents too. They're not your client, but those are sometimes the ones that you have to convince.
Yeah, so I just had this actually with my recent people I got under contract. The first time I met them, the one dad came to the house, it was atrocious of a house, and they were like running, I was like, okay. I kind of have that conversation up front of just kind of, if I know they like the house, what it looks like to write an offer, what that kind of looks like, and then just sort of the process. So we'll get inspections done usually within a week. A home inspection, I like to phrase it, is obviously it gives you knowledge. It'll show you, the big concerns, the structural safety, integrity, that kind of thing of the house. And then overall, just to how to properly maintain that specific house. It might be meticulously well kept inside. Maybe they're older and the outside, they can't, do the grading properly, or maybe there's got, that kind of thing. So I kind of give that up front of, it's going to be a lot when you get your home inspection, but we want to really focus on the big things: plumbing, electric, structural, the safety concerns. We shouldn't feel like we need to nickel and dime, quote unquote, the seller for things. And you just kind of have that in their head. So when we do go to the inspection, and we always recommend good qualified companies to do those things. And they're able to walk through with them if they would like, if there's something like, okay, you're really concerned about the basement. Okay, if you wanna go down there when the inspector's down there, just to kind of ask questions, they can explain things. That's always an option. And then when you get the report, we go over it together, usually in person, sometimes on the phone, just kind of depends when you get back. And then we look at those big sort of things. And then the options to, okay, are we gonna ask for this? Here's what it looks like if we ask for this. So really just having upfront expectations and transparency for that. Then people aren't like, oh my God, this report's 78 pages, where do I even begin?
How much of a say do you have whenever you've got your 100-page inspection report, and what if the buyer says, oh, it's fine? Or let me rephrase that. How much do you push for repairs, or give your input, or do you let the buyer decide what they think is important?
You have more expertise.
I mean,
on that.
Yeah, I mean, anyone.
I mean, to circle back on what she was explaining, from the minute we walk in the home at the showing up to the inspection, you're kind of setting the stage
Yeah.
for what to expect there. And I've always made it a habit to any of the homes that we go through, I will cite anything that I notice that's
Yes.
out of line or, that could help, whether it's the white tape for the ductwork or just countless different things, for two reasons. It sets the stage for what that inspection is gonna look like. And second, it builds trust with you as an agent.
Value.
You're not just out there to try and make every home look great. I tell people all the time, I don't sell you on the home. I walk you through these homes, give you the information. You're the one that ultimately chooses to buy it. So if I'm giving you the proper information prior to that inspection, it's gonna make the inspection go better.
Yeah.
During the inspection, I encourage them to ask questions. Just be there with the inspector to recognize exactly what is going on with this home. If it's from the 1940s, it's going to have issues. Even new built homes have issues. You know, nothing's going to ever be perfect, and you're going to end up with this 40, 50-page report, because if the inspector at the end just goes, yep, looks good, you're gonna feel like you got a pretty bad inspector.
Yeah, what did you
What'd you
pay?
pay
Yeah.
$100 for it?
Exactly, yeah, and I tell them more than anything, that binder that you get is like an owner's manual for the
Yes.
home.
Yep.
It
Yep.
tells you exactly what you should expect over the course of the
Yep.
ownership, the next few years. You can cite that for, you know, what kind of hot water tank do I have?
Yeah.
What kind of sub panel
Mhm.
is out in the garage, all these different things. When dad's there, I usually give him a tape measure and say, hey, can you gather the
And a flashlight.
room dimensions for me? Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Give him a tap.
Yeah.
Give him a tap.
It genuinely does keep him busy. I like,
That's awesome.
if you hold this flashlight, you know,
The home warranty
Yeah.
paper, get off the numbers for it.
exactly, yeah. So, you know, it's, I,
Out though too, you know, cause sometimes like, yeah, my parents
Yeah.
came, but they have a strong opinion about that, and other times it's like, no, I need to win these parents
Mhm.
over.
Yeah.
And show my value of what they're
Yes.
doing, cause that could also make or break of like,
Mhm.
no, we're done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but once the inspection's done, I mean, that's kind of, for me, that's the most pivotal point, is
Mhm.
when that inspection is done, and immediately after, when the buyers are talking amongst themselves, or they're
Mhm.
talking to the parents, because even the inspections that you think went great
Yep.
could take some
Exactly.
weird, horrible turn somewhere.
They talk
And-
to Bob and it's like,
Yeah.
no, I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most expensive home I ever sold in Hillsdale's, over $1 million. Had the inspection, everything was great, even the inspector said, this is one of the cleanest inspection
Yeah.
reports I've done back here on these historic homes. Great, we're good, let's move forward. I did not call for a couple of hours, talk to them later. Well, they found that little bit of mold in the attic there, so we're gonna pull out.
It wasn't the mold.
Yeah.
I know you're like.
Yeah, and that's where the communication more than anything
Yeah.
comes into play.
Yeah.
You know, just be there, not just for your client, but with your client, be part of that conversation that they're having.
Yeah.
So that you can accurately gauge whether or not this thing's gonna move forward. I
Mhm.
always
Yeah.
hate hearing from agents, yeah, inspection went good, and then I get a release 2 days
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
Had that happen a couple days ago,
Yeah.
Yeah. so,
You know, it's the agent not nurturing that relationship.
right.
Patty, what are the biggest, I wanna stump you. Like, that's my goal. What are the most common things that you are seeing showing up on ROCs when they hit your desk?
Oh, boy. That's a lot. I
Or
mean,
when you see this, it's the biggest headache?
when somebody asks for a roof,
Roof.
yeah, but. In this day and age, which I'm sure if you deal with a lot of buyers, insurance companies are getting very invasive when it comes to roofs.
Mhm.
So we do have that hindrance, but mostly I see. For the most part, it's mostly like electrical and plumbing,
Mhm.
like, which are legit.
Sure.
Like, you know, you're gonna ask for those, or, you know, HVAC, to
Mhm.
get it cleaned or whatever,
Yeah.
but. Roofs can be a real sticking point,
Okay.
so for both sides, because of the cost.
Mhm.
The cost is, you know, astronomical compared to what it used to be,
Yeah.
and, you
Yeah.
know, so I mean, that's what I'd have to say for right now.
How do you prepare a seller up front when you know before the inspection, the roof is aging? It's probably 20 years old. What do you say to a seller, to prepare them so it's not surprise, the buyer's asking for a roof?
Right. Well, a lot of times, if we know a roof is at the end of its useful life and the seller does not obviously have the money, doesn't want to replace it, whatever the case may be. We've actually put that in our broker remarks before. We know the roof is at the end of its useful life. So we know this is gonna come up. We sold one in North Canton this past year, and a lot of times, prior to listing, we'll have our roofer go out and take a look and give an opinion. And if that's his opinion, I'm like, we're gonna we're gonna get that no matter what. So this is something
Yeah.
you're gonna have to be fully aware of,
Mhm.
is gonna come up in a home inspection. It doesn't matter. If it's FHA, the appraiser can call for a roof cert.
Mhm.
So either way, you're dealing with it, whatever the case may be.
Sure.
So,
So just having that transparency with your seller and with your buyers, from an insurance standpoint on how to handle that.
yeah.
I'll
important.
comment on that too, because with the last couple years of all the hailstorms, a lot of those insurance companies have inserted clauses in their policies, and once the lender gets the policy, the lender cannot guarantee that loan anymore because there's this exception, big exception in their policy. So we have been like Sunday evening in the final hour fighting the insurance companies to remove that little clause in there, and I'm told that they should be adjusting that, it should be getting a little bit better, but I haven't seen it yet, so, but
That would
yeah.
be nice,
Mhm.
because they're really
Yeah,
crazy. I'm
it's
like,
bad.
I've had buyers agents call me and say, well, my buyer can't get insurance.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, they better find another insurance
Yeah.
company,
Yeah,
but
there's
you know what
always-
I mean?
yeah.
So
Are
like,
Are you guys seeing that more heavily with specific insurance companies, or is it across the board?
I think it's pretty much across the
I've seen it on
board.
buy and list side.
State Farm's the worst right
They
now.
are the
Yeah,
worst.
and that's my
Progressive's
agent, I've
been
told
saving
him
some
that.
deals for me actually, so, which is, yeah. big, but interesting.
I have a question. One of the things that I struggle with as an agent is like, when you send the ROC over, let's say for a roof. And you're like, oh, the listing agent's like, we'll send a roofer out. Well, I kind of feel like I wanna send a roofer out. Like, how do you protect your side? I had one deal where the listing agent did send somebody out and they said that everything looked fine. And my inspector was like, this roof is trash. And I'm like, how is this possible? Then so I sent somebody out and it was just like a big.
Yeah.
Who do you listen to?
So how do you protect your buyer when the listing agent wants to send somebody out? Do you think it's important to send two people out? Like how would?
I mean, they can, yeah, they always say, can I send my roofer out? I go, yes, but I'm sending mine out as
So
well.
you always send regardless?
So, the roofer we've used him for years, we know, we trust him, and he'll be the first one, if he gets on a roof and it's not good, he's gonna tell us, like, he's not, oh, your roof is perfect, we're gonna move on from this, he's not like that at all. But I have had some cases where a buyer, unbeknownst to us, had two roofers out to one of our properties, the quotes were astronomical, like, the one I was like, does he use like gold studded nails? I don't understand how this is so expensive.
Yeah.
So I send my guy out and he's, okay, they're Amish. So they don't have the overhead like Royalty and, you know, Roof Smiths and all those guys or whatever. And I just say, my guy went out, he's doing the same exact thing that your guy is doing for this price. We're willing to work with you on this roof, but we're not willing to pay that price. If you so choose to use your roofer, we'll give you this much money towards the roof. So it basically ends up in a negotiation, but I never tell anybody they can't send their own contractor out ever. I can't drive that.
Yeah.
Rich would yell at me.
As long as the
Has to
seller
be
gets
aware.
permission for the roofer to
Exactly.
go out. that's all.
Exactly.
Yeah, you
They
can't
have to
just
have
them
knowledge
pop up
of
and be
it.
like,
Yeah.
Over here, and we're like,
Yeah.
great.
Oh, that I don't like at all. Neither does my seller.
Yeah.
Surprise. So,
Let's talk a little bit about big repairs, maybe septic
Ugh.
and escrow holdbacks. Are there any limits on what repairs cannot be escrowed? And this also might hit on financing too. So are there any repairs for like certain loan types that probably have to be done before closing, or when would you escrow a repair?
Yeah, so like on the title and escrow side, like you said, it bleeds into the lending. So the first
Mhm.
question I would have is, like, if there's a proposed holdback, is we're gonna need an addendum, obviously, because as the escrow agent, we can't really do anything without written instructions. So that's anything we do is authorized by the parties. So we'll need an addendum to hold the funds. I'm also gonna be asking, hey, is the lender aware of this? Because we don't do any escrow holdbacks that aren't disclosed on the closing disclosure. So like, sometimes that question's been floated, and that's one thing that we have to always have it disclosed on the closing
Like
disclosure.
we're trying to hide this
Exactly.
repair from the
Yes.
lender.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes, so we don't do that. And so then the other thing is, we're gonna have the parties sign an escrow hold agreement with us, because again, they have to authorize us to be the agent for it. And the amount isn't really material. Again, we're more interested in like, what does the lender think about it? But one thing that's maybe sometimes people don't know in advance is that when the time comes to disperse the funds, we do need the parties to give us written authorization to disperse the money. So that's the seller and the buyer. So whether it's like a repair, you know, we wanna make sure all parties sign off on, we're satisfied with the repairs, you can release the money. This much goes to the contractor, here's an invoice, and oh, we have overage, that goes back to the seller or whatever. So that's something too, that sometimes our agents are surprised, like, oh, you need an addendum to release the money. We do because we need to be authorized by the parties that, yes, buyer and seller are both good. American can send the money out to this guy and this guy.
So like, even if it's
Send
3
out.
months after closing, you need
Exactly.
those signatures.
Exactly, yep, yep.
Okay. Do you need the quote up front in order to escrow the funds, or can they say escrow $20,000, no questions asked?
Yeah, that's fine. The main thing is we need the buyer and seller to sign off on it that, hey, hold this much. And then to actually release the money, we're gonna need an invoice,
Sure.
you know, and then also sign that, hey, we're both happy with it and you can send the money out. So, yeah.
From a lending standpoint, I've had situations.
Not the case.
Where like specifically waterproofing and like some sort of loan types don't like to see that after closing. They want it done before closing.
Mhm.
And is there a certain percentage over the, let's say the repair is $10,000? Is it a 1.5 times? Educate us a little bit about that.
So, and like I said before, every lender's created differently, so, when we have, escrow holdback, it is a case to case approval, so we have one guy all the way at the top and he's gotta give the blessing. And there has to be like a good reason, so like, we can't dig the ground because it's frozen solid, so we're not gonna be able to waterproof this until 3 months after closing. Understandable, we can't get, you know, somebody to go out and replace the septic for another 3 months. Okay, like, as long as we know, like, we're gonna be able to get this passing to sell this loan off, like, that's the big concern with lenders. So in our case, we always require 2 quotes. And then we take 10% above the highest quote.
Okay.
So, like I said, everybody's different. It could be 1.5 times the quote that you get up front. But for us, our case to case is you're gonna get 2 quotes. And then we're gonna do the escrow holdback 10% higher than the highest quote. And then same thing, we actually have to send our, like if it's an appraisal issue, we send the appraiser back out. Actually, we do a reinspection before we give the title company approval to release the funds. And then whatever overage was held goes back to buyer, seller, whoever paid for it.
Are there any repairs that cannot be in an escrow holdback?
If it's something that can be done, it's just a matter of like financials, like those usually don't get approved.
Okay.
So like if it's, you know, the buyers or the sellers have agreed to replace the roof and the roof can be done next week, but they can't come up with the funds, like we would rather you find a roofer that will be agreed to be paid at closing, out of closing, than have to escrow that whole roof. Because it's kind of like, yeah, it's unnecessary, and if something falls through after closing, then we get stuck holding the bill. So of like the whole loan, because we can't get this over to an investor, so yeah,
Okay.
so now that, you know, $300,000 loan is stuck on our books because it's
Mhm.
not purchasable or, you know, it's not conforming, so.
Sure. You have a question? Okay. Yeah, questions for the room?
So Kayla, I'm seeing this more and more. It seems like a lot of lenders are writing their own escrow agreements for clients. Why is that happening instead of a title company doing it, and what are the risks or benefits to this?
So for the same reasons, like if we can't if we can't sell this loan off, so like nobody wants to hold their loans for the whole 30 years, obviously, like we're brokering loans every day. As soon as it's closed, we're figuring out where's it gonna go. Before it's closed, we're figuring out where's it gonna go. So if they can't make that loan like financeable or purchasable, then it's stuck on the book. So their legal team is highly involved in how we're gonna get around the escrow if something does fall through and the dominoes don't fall as they were supposed to, or as like agreed upon, which happens all the time. Like, how can we make sure we cover our interests and we're not stuck with this $300,000 loan because of this $20,000, repair? So the legal team, and that's why I said it, for our company, it is case by case, one specific guy at the top, and you present your quotes, your case and everything else. So legal is highly involved in those escrow agreements.
So how often would you say they happen? How often would you say you see them and how often do they get approved?
I've had like one in the last year happen during the summer. It's usually during the winter. If it's
Mhm.
peeling paint, that can't happen right away,
Sure.
weather dependent. Those smaller ones are very easy to get approved. It's
Okay.
not a big deal. But the bigger ones are definitely, I mean, it's a quick decision. They look at the risk, and especially if your buyer is strong, it goes a long way. If it's already like a really like difficult, high risk profile, it's gonna be a little bit harder. But, yeah, I mean, if they're putting a big down payment on it and we know that our loan to value is good, like, there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Nice. I'm gonna open it up for questions from the room. What are some of the topics that you heard that you have questions on? If you wanna know a little bit more from each party, and then I have one final question for everyone before we wrap up this section. So, questions from the room. Talk about inspections, appraisals, buyer financing falling through.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment.
Go for it.
If I have an appraisal that I worry we went way over list price and I worry that it's going to appraise. I think that it's helpful to add as much in the listing description that you can. That the appraiser is going to read that also. Make sure they put in the new updated this, new updated that. I think A, that helps your value. B, I've gone and shown up before when the appraiser has come and I may have worn heels in a skirt.
I do the same thing.
You're 20 grand.
Now we know.
It may have worked.
Is that a service that you offer?
Rich, plug your ears.
I might use it to my benefit too, and I don't know.
Right now. I would say on our listings, we, either Jose or myself sends comps to the appraiser every single time.
Before they
Or,
go out.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's why they always have to go through me. I always reach out to the lenders in the very beginning, tell them the contact for the appraiser, so I know who's entering the property.
I think it helps, again, communication, these are the comps we pulled, well, this agent's gonna be a pain in the butt, so if I don't appraise it.
Yeah, well, and we just had an investor meeting this morning. We had an appraiser there. He's an appraiser I really liked, so, and he was just telling them about that, cause I asked him, I was like, well, we still have some with escalation clauses that are multiple
Sure.
offers. And so I always try to let the appraiser know that.
Yeah.
One, so it doesn't lose out for the buyer, like not only just my seller, but so the buyer was in it, really wanted this house,
Yeah.
like, paid the extra money. So anyway, that kind of stuff. So we always try to, as in bulletproofing, try and be in there prior to, and with the amount of years that I have in, plus I was in finance before this, so I knew appraisers that I talked to now way back when. And I know which ones that I know we're gonna have an issue with, and I just let the sellers know up front. I'm sorry, I've dealt with this person over the years, and this isn't gonna go well for us, so.
I've told them on the phone before, like, hey, just so you know, I'm not trying to tell you to do your job, but we have multiple offers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the more information they have, and they understand that, like, hey, both parties are expecting this, like, can you really
Yeah.
do your homework, like, can you, so.
Regarding the comps that you choose, I know for certain loan types, if they're using certain programs, the comps, they're going to want a certain, like, for example, the house that I sold that I lived in was a 2-bedroom, and they said the certain loan type, they need at least a 2-bedroom comp. Like, and they need it to be within the zip code or within the district, but some don't require that. So, does as a lender, do you know those requirements and do you help in that situation where there's appraisal gap? Or is it more so the appraiser?
It's more so the appraiser,
Okay.
and if they have, like, so if they know that they have VA financing, or they know that it's FHA USDA, like, there's gonna be different requirements on that report that they're gonna be audited against. But I will say too, the time of year, you know, we get a lot of these in early spring, because we know, like, in Ohio, we have our bell curve, right? So the demand is picking up, the prices are picking up, but those comps have to be closed transactions. So if the closed transactions from the winter months are just now hitting and they can't pool, there's gonna be a little bit of a delay. So helping those appraisers along, and like Patty said, like, I have had listing agents and I can't reach out, like, I can't have contact directly. That's why we use appraisal management services to kind of keep them accountable. But you guys can.
Yeah.
You have a direct line, and I encourage that too. Yeah, that's a great point, Patty.
Yeah, buyers, sellers and agents can talk to the appraisers, just, I mean, cause we've had buyers get upset because something got under appraised and they're like, you're gonna make me lose my house, like, you single-handedly, which.
Right,
They have a lot of
Yeah.
power in a situation, so like, I always play nice.
Yeah.
I had one more. Going back to the escrow holdback, the amount of times I've heard this team say, we need a new roof, and we're gonna do an escrow holdback, I'm like, no, we don't do that, we don't do roof escrow holdbacks, but it keeps coming up and up and up again. Because of the insurance companies being so strict now. So does, like Danielle had just done one, and the escrow holdback actually came from her lender, and it explained everything, which I thought was great, because it covers all bases, it's laid out clear. Does Keller Home Loans do that, and is that something that all lenders will start to do, or are we creating our own, back to an addendum, escrow holdback, et cetera?
I would say, and to Rich's point, I would say, before you start getting those addendums and those escrow holdback agreements, ask the lender first. Because the chances are they are going to have their own, because it has to be carried out very specifically for them to get this loan purchased. So ask them first. If they don't, obviously you can proceed, but the majority of the time, and it is kind of like I said, we had those giant windstorms 2 years ago and 3 years ago, and it, like, you know, now insurance is just trying to hedge their losses, I guess. But it has become a huge issue. We probably need an insurance person.
Stay tuned for next month.
Yeah.
That is actually what we're.
Okay,
Now we're
good.
gonna have tax and insurance next to it.
I'll be there. But yeah, it's becoming a much bigger issue for lenders. And if we wanna get the loans purchased, we need to control that aspect, the escrow aspect of it too, as much as possible.
Ginger, I would say the second step would be ask the title company attorney to write the escrow agreement, even if they charge the buyer and the seller a couple $100s each for it. The last thing agents should be doing is writing an escrow agreement, because I can tell you, we just had one at Chagrin where the agent did it, and there was $3,000 that was missed in plumbing repairs for a septic. And now the agent's gonna get sued because they wrote the addendum and practiced legal counsel. And I will tell you, I just used an eviction attorney, she is suing an EXP agent for writing an addendum for practicing law. So.
I
Like,
would much
it's-
rather use their forms than put it
You
on
should
my
not
plate.
be writing those documents.
Yeah.
For any escrow holdback.
No, you shouldn't. I mean, again, there's so many things that are detailed in it. It's what's gonna happen to the money if there's an overage? What's if there's another? Who does it go back to? What's the time frame? You know, what contractor is allotted to be used? Who's doing it? The seller or the buyer? There's so many things that go on in there that we don't write those every day, so we really shouldn't be writing them.
When you see a poorly written addendum, Charles, what do you do? Whether it's escrow holdback or, you know, there's not enough detail. Or what is like one of the most common ones that you see that you're like, this is not gonna work?
Yeah, I think so. With an addendum, we're looking for like, okay, how much is being held? What party is it being held from? You know, so those are a couple, sometimes we'll just say title to hold back like 3,000 or something. We need a little more specifications about like, well, who are we holding it from? And then once we get to the point of dispersing the funds, then we're gonna need specifications about who does the overage go to? You know, does it go to the buyer, the seller? And are all parties satisfied with the repairs? You know, so that's something I also look for too, like they're signing off on that there. Cause I've seen situations where it's like, okay, the paintwork is done, so send out the money, and the buyer's like, they botched it, and then, you know, yeah, exactly, so. I would want details about that, like, who we hold the money from, who is it going back to, who's it being dispersed to, and are all parties on the same page with it before we would be, so I'd be asking for clarification if that was.
Well, and I'll clarify too for some of the newer agents, because I had this happen in last year with a seasoned agent. And they confuse the two definitions of escrow holdbacks, meaning you're gonna hold these funds and those funds are not gonna get dispersed and those services aren't gonna be like provided until, you know, quite a while after closing. Versus like they had a contractor that was doing the work before closing and they wanted it paid at closing. That shows up on the LE or the closing disclosure much differently. So it's so much easier if you have a contractor that's willing to do the work and willing to provide the invoice and get paid out at closing. That's possible. And you don't have to get approval for that. It just shows up on the seller side on the closing disclosure. That's totally separate than an escrow holdback that would happen after the closing.
Awesome. Any other questions before I ask my final question?
I have a question on inspections. So if, as a buyer, you have your inspection done, you get your binder, everything moves forward, you close on the house, but possession doesn't take place for a month. And then something goes wrong and it was missed on the inspection, what happens?
Like during the possession period?
Yeah, like who's responsible to fix the repair?
The hot water tank blew or something.
Yeah, like who's responsible, or there's a huge plumbing issue, you know, it wasn't caught on inspection,
Yeah.
so closing has taken place. Then what happened?
The owner of the property is
I
responsible.
say, I refer back to what our contract says about that, and there's usually stipulations, with delayed possession or occupancy after title transfer of who's responsible for, X, Y, and Z.
So it would be the buyer would be responsible, cause they.
Because they own the
technically
home.
it, Even though they haven't taken possession.
Yes,
Okay,
and typically, your buyer's required to have, obviously insurance that in place, but if they do have delayed occupancy, some insurance companies will require them to have a little like stipulation that someone else is going to be living in there before they take occupancy for that additional coverage of they set the house on fire, you know, something crazy like that.
It's almost like that seller would need to have renter's insurance.
Yes.
Especially if it's a longer delayed possession time.
okay.
And we have an addendum that's called title transfer, like possession after title transfer in that loop. I highly suggest you use it if it's longer than a couple days. Because it does detail all of those items of who's responsible for what.
Okay. And is there any way that if it's missed on the inspection? Can you go back on the inspection? Does that question make sense?
Yeah. What would you
People
guys
have-
say?
Yeah, I've had clients that have been upset because something was missed or inaccurate on an inspection, and at that point, they do go after the inspector.
Most of the inspector reports, though, you have to read them because in the beginning it says like what if you can even go after them, it might be like a hold harmless agreement or
Yeah.
a settlement of all claims in the beginning that says. If I miss something, that's just too bad, basically you can only sue me for the cost of the inspection. If they don't have that, then maybe at next point you go after them. I mean, I've also had buyers that have gone after inspectors and the inspector will just write the check rather than
Good work.
Yeah.
go in court.
Yeah, and a lot of that verbiage that the inspectors put in there, that's one of the hardest parts with dealing with inspectors, is because there's so much. You know, CYA, cover your butt verbiage in there, that it's hard for if that client was there. And didn't ask those questions, if they read through that report, they're terrified of it. And that's what's so difficult about like an out of state buyer, that only gets the report emailed to them after the fact, they go through it. And it's just a laundry list of all these terrible sounding things, it's because those inspectors have run into issues like that in the past, and they have to include that in the report.
And a good inspector will say, I inspect this house on this day, on the condition of this day. And like, in some reports, they're gonna say it was a rainy day, or it was sunny and 75. We didn't inspect, you know, it wasn't raining, so, they're gonna cover their butts,
And
for sure.
sometimes they'll put like personal property was in the way that they couldn't access.
The
certain
limitations,
areas or-
yeah. So that's like, if the inspector doesn't explain that, then you wanna explain it as the agent to your, client.
I have one other thing to add about like maybe TC side, paperwork side, because you started talking about when Charles brought up the tax bill and everything you look at on the auditor site, is when you're in the supplements and it says blah, 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 POA. Okay, but then they just signed their name on the contract and the agency disclosure and everything. When I get the paperwork and I see that discrepancy and either we don't have the POA documents or estate documents or whatever, I talk to the agent and say, hey, like, are they like the managing member? Did we confirm with title how this needs to be written and spelled out for paperwork and deed and title processing and all of that? I've seen that come up quite a bit, and actually we had a deal where yeah, they had an estate, but he was not legally allowed to sell the property. And he signed it with all. It's like, yeah, we're good under contract, and we caught it and it was like, oof, pump the brakes.
But it wasn't your client.
No, we had the buyer.
Okay,
The
yeah.
seller, the listing agent did not do his due diligence to read those documents beforehand. He's just like, yep, I inherited this property, my mom died, I wanna sell it. Well, he doesn't have access to do real estate for her, estate.
Charles, with that being said, how much of the trust paperwork and power of attorney paperwork do you actually need? Do you need the whole entire booklet or the first couple of pages just explaining who?
Yeah.
can sell?
Yeah, so for a POA, we always do the whole document, and I've many times over the years, I've come across deals where like agents have said like, the owner's deceased, but their son or daughter have POA. And a lot of you guys know, once somebody is deceased, the POA expires, yeah, you can't. Yes, so I think that's more commonly known now, but so with the POA though, we do need a whole copy of it. Also, if somebody did sign with the POA, this is maybe just something to prep your clients on. We are actually required by our underwriters to ask if the party they sign for can sign for themselves. Because POA fraud is rampant in the industry. I was even just working with the team recently on a sketchy POA situation. We had the person actually sign instead of the POA. So just something to be aware of. If we asking your clients, and we try to coach people to ask in a sensitive and understanding way, but we're gonna be asking like, is the party capable of signing for themselves, the principal? So we're gonna need the whole POA and we're gonna scrutinize that a little bit, respectfully, but we have to do that per underwriting. With trust, if we can get the whole trust, that's ideal, just because it's easier, it's all.
The whole entire booklet?
If possible, yes. Now, here's the thing though, is that we can pull out certain parts of the trust. So that's where our teams can kind of coach the agent or the customer on, here's what we need from the trust. So we need to say like, we need to see like the cover page that shows the title. We need to see like, who are the trustees of it? What are their powers? Can they sell for real estate? Or sign for real estate sales? Who are the beneficiaries of it? And then the signature pages. So those are some like highlights that we need, so we can work with people on that. I've even had people sometimes be like, I don't even know where to start with this. Can I just bring it in? Like, sure. So they bring it in, we sat down, I looked through it, I pull out what I need, and then we move on. So we
I
can.
took pictures of my equipment the
Yeah.
other day, and
Mhm.
like each of them, I'm like, I would think this encompasses everything they need, and they
Yeah.
don't actually need a copy of it, I'll upload this to Dotloop, but I
Sure.
thought, gosh.
Yeah,
Did I catch everything?
would you say sorry?
At closing, they have to bring it.
For POAs, yes,
okay,
for
yeah.
trust, they
Right,
don't,
yeah.
yeah, cause
Oh,
POAs have to
yeah.
get recorded at the county, the original does. But for trust, we can work with a copy. If you see memorandum of trust, by the way, zero in on that, that almost always has everything right on it. So if you see memorandum in that big trust binder, pull that out, scan and send your title agent, because it's probably gonna cover everything, so.
If I don't know what you're gonna need and I have a trust, an estate, I'm working with, POA. Can I just ask my title person, hey, what documents do you need?
Mhm.
And they'll give us a list.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you can be like, hey, my client's, even maybe like, I have a trust and the trustee's deceased and their daughter's the successor trustee or whatever. What do we need? Like, we can talk you guys through that, exactly, because, yeah, that's what we're doing with it.
I've had people email me and I'll normally send it to Marty, who's our underwriting manager, or Charles, and say like, hey, please see below, this is what they have, is the language correct? So it's not sometimes just even the document, it's,
The
like you
language.
said, is it for real
If it
estate?
was
And,
written
someone's like,
correctly.
I have the POA, well, it's to buy a car, or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, we get that a lot to review things up front.
Okay, awesome. Okay, my last question for the panel, if you could change one thing in the under contract process to reduce fallout, what would it be? And what have you adjusted in your processes? What have you adjusted to reduce fallout? Anyone can start.
I have always felt that there needed to be some kind of a holdback for possession after closing. That is, I don't know how many
Like
times,
dollar amount?
yeah,
Okay.
some kind of
Time or
an
money?
agreement. You mean-
Time or money, like, do you mean like a dollar amount, like Caitlin said,
Yeah,
or?
typically a dollar
Okay.
amount, if the seller needs a month
Sure.
possession, then we are holding back $3,000 for liabilities from moving out and things, cause at that point, you know, if we're doing our final walkthrough, it's worthless. This is not the property that you are going to get keys to.
Yeah.
And whether it's a moving company that scuffs something up, you know, like you had mentioned, a furnace goes bad, a hot water tank, whatever it may be. There's so many things that happen there that I hate being the bearer of bad news to my client, the buyer, saying, you know, well, it's kind of between you and the seller at this point. We can't really do too much. Our hands are kind of tied when it comes to this stuff. So
Yeah.
I would say that would be the simple thing that would help out a lot.
I say, like, if they're negotiating or you're getting ready to even put an offer in, encourage them to get with their lender on numbers. Because a lot of people will go under contract because they saw the monthly payment on Zillow, and that's not what it translates. And then they, like, as soon as they're under contract and they get their loan estimate, now they have sticker shock.
Yep.
So often I know what my clients are putting offers in on because they send me the address, I go to the auditor, I see what the taxes are, and they go in completely confident in what their monthly payment is gonna be on that house versus some of my clients will be out there for months looking, and then all of a sudden I get a contract and I was like, I didn't even know you're still in the market, like.
Yeah.
So, and then they have the sticker shock, so I'd say that, and then, as a lender, like, when I get a contract, the first thing I do is look at the closing date. If I, like, you guys can put whatever you want on there, but if I know VA is taking longer, or they're using down payment assistance and that's taking longer, I let everybody up front know, hey, we are going to do everything we can to hit this, but realistically, prepare for an extension. And a lot of times, if you do that up front, everybody's fine with it.
Sure.
Because they can, you know, turn in their notice on their rental or whatever they need to do accordingly until you get to the end and you're like, we need an extension now on the day of closing.
So eliminating surprises. I love that.
I would say knowing your paperwork. I came from that and I see that, and that will make or break a deal sometimes. You should know our contract front and back and be able to explain it and know that, but on the list side, when you get a Howard Hanna contract, it looks completely different and certain terms are spelled out differently. And you have to be that person for your seller to catch those things. Maybe they wrote in, you know, $200 for this, or maybe they did do a 45-day delayed possession and that doesn't work for your seller. Like, there's certain things with just knowing your paperwork and knowing your contract and the terms and deadlines, especially for inspection window and negotiation periods, and what that looks like for them will be super helpful. I've been in only a few deals, I know, but where that has come to bite the other agent in the butt because she did not know our contract. And my buyer wanted out and he got out. So.
That was a very TC answer. I love it. And if that's not your strong suit, maybe talk to a TC. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say, one thing that's often a surprise for parties who are like entities, so if it's like a trust or an estate or an LLC, corporation, whatever, is we're often, we're more invasive as far as like we need documentation from them. And the proceeds too for a sale have to be payable to the party on title. So like if you like say are on title of the property is like, you know, Doe Real Estate LLC, that's how the proceeds are gonna be payable. Or if it's the John Doe Trust, it's gonna be payable to the trust. I often find that a lot of times people are shocked by that. And so one thing I'm working on with the teams is trying to educate our customers ahead of time about that when we do our welcome call. And we're also looking at adding verbiage into our welcome documents. Well, just like, hey, if you are an entity, if you're selling through your company or your trust or whatever, that's how the proceeds can be payable. Oftentimes, people just need to set up a bank account for it, and
Mm.
they just didn't realize that I needed it for this, and so. I'd rather be talking to people about it 30 days out as opposed to like when they come in to sign, or when they're getting
Right.
scheduled, and it's not convenient, so. That's one thing we're trying to develop with our documents, and also just when we're talking to the customers, like, hey, just so you know, this is what you can expect.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would definitely say that, cause we look into that, I always look to see who's in title, or if it's a trust and LLC, if
Yeah.
it's a new investor, I need your operating agreement
Yep.
now.
Do your
not-
homework upfront.
Not,
Yeah.
I need it now.
I love it
Let's
when
get
they
that
send
done.
it, so.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
Yeah, all,
Yep.
all the
Yep.
things or whatever, but one thing I wish everybody realized, there's sometimes I think buyers really don't, you're in a legally binding contract.
Yeah.
Which has timelines in it,
Yes.
which you should be following, and if you're not following it, there are consequences to that.
Yeah.
On both sides, like, I've had people say, well, you know, I've told buyers agents before, well, if you're not gonna do that, you know, my seller's just gonna be done with this transaction.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, you can't do that, yeah,
Yes,
we,
you can.
yeah, we can, you're
Yeah.
not doing your job,
Yeah,
you're
your
not
end,
doing what
yeah.
you said you would do. So that's one thing, like, people like write a contract and think it's like, okay, yeah, we're good.
Right.
And
LOL.
it's- Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. The next part of our class is going to be, I have scenarios in here, so we're gonna get into groups or pairs. Everyone's gonna get a different scenario, and Rich is going to be our judge. So we'll take a couple minutes to do that before we break for lunch, and Rich will tell us if we're doing the things correctly or we're gonna go to real estate jail.
I only have that power.
Right.
He's sending your license back to the state.
Yeah. So you guys can
Somebody else
go
will
out
speak to it.
and like plug into the groups, if you want, that would be helpful, and I'll try to give the certain scenarios to like what group you're in, so. But we wanna try to let the agents figure it out, so let's give a hand to our panel, thank you guys. Yeah, let's go ahead and split up, let's do groups of 2 or 3, and I'll pass out some of these scenarios.
They're like, we've heard enough. That's right.
Alright.
Everyone's down on all of
Okay, I'll just let you know. Okay, from my bucket. There you go. Okay.
Do what?
Sorry, you guys got.
No. Hopefully our computers are working.
Oh, do you wanna go join, Tara's room or this group?
I'm not trying to do it all by myself.
Hey, why don't you go find.
So what's that?
Said this Courtney still have all of her hair.
She does, it might be. But, yeah. Yeah. It's been interesting, it's more like a small, you know, I don't know if you guys don't know what to do later. Good. Just an evening.
Well, I haven't worked with any sellers yet, but I would say, reach out to Lil, so then tell her she was
Right.
watching.
Sure, yeah,
Or
yeah.
maybe first
Yeah.
reach
Oh,
out
okay.
to the seller and say, hey, we're gonna need your photo signatures, or whatever it is, for this listing, just to know.
Yeah.
Nothing.
So, this is our scenario. for what's going on. Love that. Hey, we're gonna do both of your signatures. This elements out. That's right. Like for top tier.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe let us know.
The title is probably the one that are you there.
Yeah, they probably got it, and you're like, oh, crap, I didn't read my salary. Yeah. So.
Yeah. How long? I'm Christine. How long? December. Okay, okay, so we're almost a year.
So,
Okay.
you're on next time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, really, yeah, the matches fell over quite a bit at home.
You said we're having previous.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
We're
reaction.
Okay. Yeah. Got a contractor for the USAR and then.
Nice. So it's.
Yeah. I didn't see her. She's like.
Well, I don't think it's about my brother, but have you introduced it yet? It's so.
We've done that before.
Or we're using that, not the person, but I was. I'll say that, the guy's wife showed up to the open house pissed, and I'm like, don't kill me, I'm not those CDs, right? You know? Yeah. And it was like, oh, he's like, no. The way they do, and he contacted his son, it does, yeah, because I had all that had to that.
Yeah.
She said she was contacting her attorney. So, right.